Since Aristotle, creativity has been associated with intelligence as being one of the three main components of intelligence, namely analytical, practical, and synthetic intelligence. Analytic intelligence includes skills like analyzing, critiquing, judging, comparing, evaluating, and assessing. Practical intelligence involves the ability to apply, use, put into practice, implement, or employ knowledge. And synthetic or creative intelligence is about what one can imagine, create, invent, discover, or predict. Creativity and generativity are therefore by definition associated with synthetic dimensions of intelligence. As with many other complex phenomena, such as intelligence itself, there is no single well-accepted definition of creativity. Here is a list of definitions of creativity from various sources. A common element in these definitions, and the word that I have highlighted, is that it has to do with putting together something new or novel out of the uniqueness of the individual itself. We see here new combinations that have worth. It has to do with problem solving and novelty. It has to do with the process and originality of the outcome. The recurring themes seems to be process, originality, novelty, and solutions. The definition of creativity can be broken down into 4 characteristics that appear in pretty much every well-accepted definition. First, the characteristics of creativity always involves thinking or behaving imaginatively. That is, using synthetic intelligence and being generative. There's always a generative component involved. Second, this imaginative activity is purposeful. That is, it is directed to achieving an objective. Third, these processes must generate something original, something new. Fourth, the outcome must be of value in relation to the objective. Let's go through these attributes, keeping in mind the question of whether they are exclusive to humans or could apply to artificial systems like Aaron. The first dimension indicates that to be a creative system, one must be a generative system. This is the case with Aaron, which clearly generates paintings. The second dimension, purposefulness, means that the imaginative generative activity is directed at achieving an objective, a particular creative task. For example, Aaron is making oil paintings. The third dimension is originality. We can define originality or novelty in the following way. A production is as original as it is rare, or as it is judged to be original by a group of judges, or as it associates pieces of knowledge that are distant. In the case of Aaron, each production is original because it's unique, and it has also been judged to be original by a group of judges, at least the curators of the Tate Gallery and other galleries that have exhibited the work. The fourth dimension is that it has to be valuable. It has to have some value in relation to its purpose. In the example of Aaron, Aaron's paintings are valuable. Some of them have been bought by the Tate Gallery and by art collectors. More generally, a well-accepted definition of creativity by the English philosopher Margaret Boden is that creativity is the ability to come up with ideas or artifacts that are original and valuable. Boden goes on to distinguish 2 types of creativity. P-creativity, or psychological creativity, is when something is novel and valuable, but to the individual, not necessarily to humanity in general. This is sometimes referred to as mundane creativity or everyday creativity. For example, the first time a kid draws a house, it may be an exceptional moment for the kid and for the parents, and it demonstrates creativity. But it might not have more consequences than that. H creativity, on the other hand, stands for historical creativity. That refers to cases in which there's something novel and valuable being produced for humanity. It's new and valuable not only for the author. H creativity is sometimes called eminent creativity or big C creativity. For example, when Leonardo da Vinci painted the Mona Lisa, even though he might not have known it, that was H creativity. The modern view is that whether it's P creativity or H creativity, we are all creative, or can be to a lesser or greater degree if we are given the opportunity. So that's good news. Another view of creativity introduced by Margaret Boden in 2006 differentiates three types of creativity. The first type of creativity is exploratory creativity, where you have a space, sometimes called a conceptual space, and you're being creative if you create novel and valuable concepts or artifacts that belong within that particular space. For example, you could explore the space of all the rock and roll songs and generate a new song within this space and would be creative that way. The second type of creativity is combinatorial creativity, where you are being creative by putting together two different spaces and looking at their intersection and putting together things that are otherwise kept separate. For example, I might have the space of all the video projectors and the space of all the cell phones and get the idea of creating a cell phone that would be a video projector as well. And then there is a third and by far the rarest type of creativity, which is transformational creativity. Transformational creativity is when the creative act itself changes the rule of the game. It changes the frontier and the boundaries of the space itself. That is what happened, for example, when Marcel Duchamp produced a work called Fontaine, which was a urinal put in a museum in 1917. It was not taken as art as first, but then a transformational effect occurred, and through argumentation and framing, Duchamp invented a new type of art called objet trouvé. That's an example of transformational creativity. The conceptual space of what is considered an artwork was transformed by this piece. Another distinction in creative theory is the one between individual creativity, where the creativity is an intentional cognitive act of a particular agent, versus group or social creativity, where the generation is collective. Beyond human creativity, some are looking at non-human creativity. Creativity can eventually extend beyond the scope of human action. For some, creativity can be observed in nature, in animals and plants that can be creative as natural agents. Evolution itself can be seen as a profoundly creative and generative force. More generally, any process whereby novel and valuable things come into being deserves to be called a creative process according to the definitions we have established. The topic of creativity is as fascinating as it is trendy. In this section, we have just brushed the surface. See the resource section for more information if you want to deepen your knowledge of current and past views on creativity.